Welcome back all to our second part of our DevCon Day 1. So we continue our sessions with kind of a new topic, providing cloud remote access for Gupta Team Developer applications. And Helmut Reimann and Martin Tietz will run you through the session.
Thank you, Ines. Let me switch to our presentation. So we've seen in the survey that we did at the beginning that 17 or 18% of you guys are using TD Mobile. Maybe that is because you have very complicated and highly functional large team developer applications, and it's not easy to get those application functionalities into a web application. So maybe you just want to use remote access to provide your existing team developer applications to the cloud and maybe enable a software as a service model for your customers. So here's the agenda. Remote work scenarios, how to bring TD desktop applications into the cloud, enabling remote work and software as a service models. OpenText Exceed TurboX remote access. That's the OpenText Exceed TurboX is the product name. We will do Helmut will do a live demo. He will demo Team Developer Cloud Access for the developer, and he will demo Team Developer Cloud Access for application users. And then we have Q&A. So, remote access has become a requirement. The pandemic has certainly accelerated a new way to work. Application users need to be able to use all applications from home or anywhere. TD application users of an organization or customers of a TD-based software product. And also developers need to be able to access their development and build machines from home or anywhere. TD application customers might want to move to a cloud subscription-based licensing model. With that, they gain flexibility, they gain resilience, gain cost predictability, and always available service without own IT efforts. So these are basically benefits that you get when you move your services to a cloud. Total cost control, high resilience, always on, and access from anywhere, which is very, very, very important today and will be important in the future ever. Software as a service opens TD applications to new consumers. You can sell your applications to users that don't want to have a local install. You can have subscription-based pricing, where you just charge a certain amount per month. And the applications are as easy to deploy and use as web applications. So basically the user just clicks on an icon in a web page and will be launching a team developer application. And Helmut will demonstrate that in a few minutes actually. And you will be, I think, surprised with the performance we get from having TD applications running in a data center or in the cloud. IT gains many advantages of centralizing TD applications. Not only TD applications, centralization in IT is kind of the best thing to do things, or the holy grail of IT really. You have one central place to maintain applications instead of end user machines, one place to configure applications and the team developer runtime. You have centralized operating system updates. You have centralized application updates, and by that being centralized, you update once and the users have immediate access to the updated versions, all users, if it's just one or if it's thousands. You have centralized backup, which is very important, of course, and one place to manage application servers, user groups, and users. And that is a part of the OpenText products where we are very powerful. TurboX provides fast and resilient remote access. What is ETX? I will be talking about ETX going forward here. That's our internally used acronym. It's a web-based platform that enables users to launch Linux, and Windows desktops and applications over the internet. So not just desktops, but also applications. And that's one of the major differences between us and competitors, for example, that you can, for example, just open a TD application remotely without opening the entire remote desktop. This gives users a seamless experience where desktops and applications running on remote hosts look and feel like they are running locally. And they might actually look and feel as if they are running a lot faster. Gives IT a central platform to monitor and manage user access to systems. So you can do things like importing the Microsoft Active Directory users and groups, and use these users and groups to to deploy applications to groups, for example, or control the deployment of applications to different user groups. Key features are high performance across WAN, even with smaller bandwidths, a very stable platform, simple user interfaces, suspend and resume. So that means that, for example, you can suspend your team developer application, drive, in the office, drive home, and resume it from home. You have session sharing, so you can share your screen with other users and discuss things you want to resolve, for example. You support primary platforms on the client and on the server. Very large or multiple monitor support, and we also have load balancing. So what's different? You get central administration and management. That's really important. So where you can import the users from your security systems, you can see what applications are assigned to what users. You can see what servers carry what applications, how many application servers you have, how the load balancing is implemented, and many more things. You have great performance. Performance is one thing that ETX is really good for, and extremely stable and high security. All access is encrypted. There's nothing that goes along the line unencrypted. So this is a very nice product to to keep your data safe in your data center instead of having data on lingering around on your end user desktops. You can have mixed Linux and Windows environment in the data center. And suspend and resume, mentioned that. Session sneak peek, so you have a screenshot of the session that you can see from the control panel, and supercharged sharing. So let me show you a quick video on the client platforms actually of Exceed TurboX. With Exceed TurboX, you can do things like that. So this video shows actually a Linux application running in a data center, which is a 3D CAD software, but that could easily be any team developer application. So just keep in mind that this could be a team developer application. So you click on an icon to launch an application. And in this case, again, this could be a team developer application. It has fast graphics, it has fast data transmission between the client and the server. When you're done, you suspend the session keeps running in the data center. Then you go to a different computer, and for example, an iMac in this case, running Mac OS. You can access the team developer application from Mac OS. Work with your team developer application on Mac OS, suspend the session. In this case, maybe go to a construction site, use an iPad Pro, and access your session again. So just imagine that those would be team developer applications here. And you can access that application from anywhere. And you see all these screens have very different resolutions. ETX automatically adapts to the resolution of the screen that you are currently using. And you can go to a hotel room still using your iPad, and in this case the iPad is connected to a mouse and keyboard, and you can use that as well. So that is a kind of the smallest type of work environment that you can take with you, and this could be a team developer application or team developer itself if you are a developer, of course. So suspending that, and then the next demo is on an iPad mini, so a smaller screen resolution. And again, the application is adjusted to the exact right screen size, and you can use the application on an iPad mini as well. And you see I'm always suspending the session, meaning that I can open it from somewhere else. And now I'm opening, I'm using a Linux desktop to open that application, and you can use a Linux desktop as well to open Team Developer or Team Developer applications if you like. So many client platforms, possibly for your team developer applications. And here's another quick video I'd like to show you that shows that this ETX can handle multiple monitors as well. So you have these, the session launch screen on the left side, and you can have your applications, your remote applications, your remote team developer applications use multiple screens. And here's how it works. So on the right side, you have either the cloud. So we will be showing the demonstration of this product today using the Microsoft Azure cloud. It can be in the office, it can be in a data center of your own. And you have ETX connection nodes. These are basically the software that's running on the application servers that takes the screen output and sends it to the client. Data is all encrypted and very compressed, so we are very good at compressing and sending the data in very small packets so that the user feels the application as if it is running locally. And I've mentioned before that we do support Windows, Mac, iPad OS, and for the administrator, the smartphones as well. So high usability with multi-window mode. The application users just open a TD application from a web dashboard. So you've seen these icons on the ETX dashboard. Just click on it and the remote applications displays as if it is local, not showing entire remote desktop session, just the TD application window. And that's something I just want to point out here because that's very unique to our solution. The remote TD application can run on multiple platforms, Windows, Mac OS, iPad OS, and Linux. And centralization and the use of Exceed TurboX makes sense for corporations because they lower costs, they increase productivity, secure their intellectual property in the data center. For end users, they get responsive applications, they can work from anywhere, they have better collaboration, and IT gains fantastic centralized administration, centralized updates, centralized backup. So you've seen all these things, secured environment, and faster response times. So using a centralized approach makes a lot of sense also for Windows desktop business applications. And without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Helmut now to show us all that in action. Helmut, please.
Okay, thanks. Let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's start to look into the environment of ETX. Martin mentioned the front end for the end user is browser based. So at this point, I send a link to my computer. This link contains access to my ETX backend. That means I'm registered on my ETX backend. This is a Linux server. On this Linux server, we render all this information like the screen, and you can see different profiles on my screen. Later on, I want to show more about how to set up these different profiles, what you can do with these different profiles, different user settings to publish an application, to publish a whole desktop, and so on. So I have various information on the screen. And also I want to show you later on the REST API so that you can create your self-service interface to add new users, maybe from customer side, to say, I want to offer my solution as a service. So that means to add new users, send an email directly to the company, to ISVs, to say there's a new user, please send out an invoice, and so on. So you can do a lot of automation, and to set up the system needs only a few minutes. Let's start to look into different settings and different profiles. And also I want to show you some different techniques like the forwarding of printer ports. Maybe you want to hide information you don't allow to copy and paste. Some informations are not allowed at a special computer and so on. So let's start with a team developer application. So I start this application and my launcher starts now. So my application, the team developer application itself, is running inside the container. It's called a launcher. That means the launcher is installed at the first time if you start your application. That means at this point, if you run maybe this application on an iPad, then the launcher for iPad will be installed at the first time, and the application is running inside the launcher. So if we work with this application, you will see the performance is really, really good. Yeah, if you look into our invoices, open an invoice. It takes a second to start the reporting engine. But if you look into the next invoice, maybe that one, it's, yeah, I know something is missing because in the ribbon bar you will normally find also some other tools from OpenText, which I want to introduce tomorrow. But you can see if I move around, if I look into the environments, if I look into my contact information, into my employee information, I can directly work with this application. And one customer told me that's much faster than at his environment because he has an old server and so on. And this application is running on an Azure cloud inside our data center. I don't know where this data center is. Maybe it's in UK, maybe it's in Munich, maybe it's somewhere in the US. I don't know. So you can see the data and the screens are compressed, and we send only the compressed data to the client. And you can then use USB ports and so on. You can use the internal printing system to print out reports. So what we do is if a user is allowed to print something locally, then we map and redirect directly the printers to his local printer. But you can set it up. I want to show it later on if we look a little bit deeper into the technology. So at this point, I want to stop my single application. I terminate that one, and now it is closed. Let's have a look into some settings. If you look into the settings, we have, for example, a custom startup. If you look into the custom startup, we find that on a special computer in West Europe, somewhere in the Azure cloud, we start in C samples an island executable. And we use the user session credentials. That means, Martin showed it before, you have to log into your environment, and we pass this information to the server. So we are logging into the server, we start the application, we get all the information from the graphic engine, and we transfer the information to the client. We have some advanced settings for this application, like the prompts. We have some information like we are not allowed to record something on this computer. We have maybe a different working directory. We can set up different drives which are allowed to save, for example, local data. Like if you have an grid control and you want to use and to save the order and group by information, then you can switch on the drive and you can now store information on the local drive. Also, we can use and hide USB drives. We can define a home directory. And in this point, printers are allowed. That means I am allowed to print something on the local computer. So this is one environment, and I close that one. And let's have a look into different other settings. By the way, this yellow star means this are my favorites. I have a lot of more information, more test environments and so on running in my environment. But at this point, I want to connect to a Win 10 machine. That means at this point, I start my Win10 machine. I log into my Win10 machine. And if you can see, it starts in the background with my credentials, login credentials. And hopefully in a few seconds, we will see my development environment. It's very useful. Like my computer is maybe in the office, and I'm running remotely. I have to go for the lockdown and so on. But at home, I don't have the environment. I don't have Team Developer. I don't have all the tools. I don't have the sources. But at least I can open now my Team Developer environment. I can start TD Mobile or SQL Windows, and I can work with SQL Windows on my remote computer. There's no lag in performance, so it's perfect. So Win64 demo, and you will see you can work on that. So this performance is pretty cool. So let's close that one. You saw this application running on server side. I can also run maybe the 64-bit version also on my remote computer. So at least there's no performance difference. A little bit background, ETX was designed for high or heavy loaded graphics. That means for CAD/CAM system, for all industry and so on to produce a lot of graphical data. And we now on top, we run business applications. That means it's a little bit overloaded, but it helps us to have a great performance because you can see that's pretty nice. It's pretty cool. Open another one, switch through the result sets. So that's, for example, inside my application, my settings. I have also different other applications running on my computer and so on. This is really a Windows 10 machine. So it's not only server side. I installed only my ETX nodes on this computer. And the ETX node scans for executables. So I get on ETX server side the information which executable is installed, and I can publish this executable if I'm administrator or have the allowance directly to add a new profile into my environment. So there's a pretty safe environment. Later on, I want to show it so that you can set up user groups. Maybe a special user group is only allowed to start a special application and so on. Let's stop that one. Timeout. I don't want to show now a server. Let's take this Carbonite server because we want to use it tomorrow in my session. So I'm logging into my Carbonite environment. My server is started. And you can see my server manager. I'm a local administrator for this computer. And I can do a big preview for my Carbonite environment, which is on the topic list tomorrow. Again, I can stop it or I can suspend it, as Martin mentioned, so I can go home and I can restart and this suspended session maybe on my iPad at home, my iPad mini, and work on this environment, test something and so on, set all the things up, and then I can go back to my maybe to my environment or into my office and work directly on the server side. Let's have a look into some settings. I'm local administrator, so that means I can open the server manager environment. And you can see I have 4 hosts running. The first one, ETX1, is a Linux box. Inside this Linux box, we do all this ETX session settings and so on. And the nice thing with ETX is also that you can set up a cluster. So it's a mesh system at this point. So if one ETX server is down for some reason, then you are automatically passed to another computer, to another ETX server, and you can still work on your normal application because the normal application is still running on your server. Only the transmission is maybe disrupted for 1 second or so. So let me say that is pretty safe. If you have, for example, a server cluster. Also, we have a load balancer automatically. If maybe the ETX server is very busy or under maintenance, then you are passed directly to another server. is a concurrent license system. And at this point, if you look into the nodes, we have different node settings. For example, for the TDM1, you can see the settings, information about the operating system, the registration and which port is used to communicate with this Azure server and so on. We have some user profiles. So at least on the right-hand side, you will see we have, for example, myself as a user, and we can set up different environments. Is an external user, is an internal user, all users, the full name, has a special admin role, for example, and so on. So the maintenance is pretty easy. Also, we can load all those roles and group information from the Active Directory system from the server side. So then we'll see all the users and the groups and so on inside this environment. We have also some user groups. Inside the user groups, for example, you can add new user groups. We have some actions to maybe to hide information and so on. And for different profiles, we have some templates. So you don't have to set up your whole environment. You can use templates. You can rename them, like I did for the RDP session on Node, for example, for a special user environment. And the more interesting thing is, I guess, if you are talking about software as a service, that you can publish specific applications. That means inside a specific application, like this file explorer, or let's take the command center. It's on a special computer, on a special host. It is a special platform and a special command to start it. So we can look into that. We can pass also parameter. Maybe it's useful if you want to use profiling in Team Developer, then you can add additional parameters to your startup sequence. That means at this point, we can write also informations into the profile section. So we have different other settings, server settings, and so on. This is at this point not so important for now. But if you look into the REST API, it starts to be very interesting because you get a lot of information about REST API. So Team Developer and TD Mobile has now a nice REST wizard to look into special URLs, to get information out of the URLs about the UDVs, about the complex data structures and so on. And for that, you can use, for example, a TD Mobile application to have a self-service terminal. So at this point, we have, for example, the possibility to create a new user. So this is a web service, and you can use this web service inside a TD Mobile application, for example, to add a new user inside the ETX environment on server side. That means at this point, your TD Mobile front end sets up a new user, like new company Reimann has a new employee, and the employee should have access to a special application or a special group of applications. Then you can pass in the information directly. So there's no admin needed, and you can send this information directly by using an email inside your TD Mobile application by using the SAL mail class. Send it to your service provider, or send it to your ISV to say, there is a new user, please send an invoice for the next 12 months. And also you can try it out. So a lot of options inside the API settings. Close that one. So you can also add profiles automatically. That means maybe you have a new application or an update of your application and you want to publish this application, then you can directly create the profile with an API, with the REST Web Service API, and then you are able directly to pass this information to the client users. Going back to my server manager, to my dashboard. Dashboard again, Martin mentioned it before. We have different options to resume our application. We can stop it. We can get information out of the application, like my current screen. I can refresh it. And also what I can do If you look into a normal application, we can create a link, a shortcut. So if you don't want to work with this environment, if you don't want to work with this dashboard, then you can create a link on your desktop. And if you click on the link on the desktop, the application starts. Because again, the launcher will be started and the launcher sends out a request to the server side to get this information into the client and start the application, of course. So again, a custom startup. If you look into some settings for this application, I set up a single Windows mode. We can also have a multiple Windows mode. That means maybe we have up to 16 different screens, different windows or displays. Then we can set up different displays for a different application. We have a single Windows mode. I want to have the current screen resolution. And a show full screen toolbar, for example. Use monitors on the primary monitor or different other monitors and so on. We have some information about the keyboard. Normally, it is set to auto-selected, but also I can set it to German keyboard or to Swiss Deutsch keyboards and so on. So a lot of settings can be done. We have a summary, of course, of different settings. You can change your icon. You can upload your own icons. If you look into the advanced mode, then we have, for example, the startup mode. We have some information like which mouse is installed, what is a click interval, touch events, if you want to have a touch screen and so on. We have some information about the startup. I mentioned it several times before. This is directly the executable which should be started on a special node. We have sessions, like user closes session. You will be prompted, do you want to leave the session? Do you want to suspend the session? You want to close the session and so on. We have some security settings. We have different protocols which we can use for different graphic engines. We have different Windows modes, current screen resolution, and so on. The different screens. Again, global, we can check the performance. We can restrict the bandwidth. That means, for example, 20 megabits is minimum. Then we can restrict it. We have different other settings. We have predefined fonts. We can set up the troubleshoot if something went wrong. We can also, for example, track information. We can print information out into a log file to find out why maybe a session was closed. And of course, the file and print section to upload information, to download information, to enable the file and print manager, and copy and paste. Is copy and paste, for example, allowed? If I look into the current situation, mostly users are using ETX by sending someone at home. They have their computer at home. They don't want to give them very expensive hardware to use it maybe in their environment and at home. And they let them, or they send them only this link via email. And then they click on the link, they start the link. The launcher will be installed, and then they can immediately start running the application. And maybe they have a very old computer, maybe only 2 gig of RAM, with maybe a very noisy hard disk and so on. It doesn't matter because everything is done on server side or maybe on a Windows 10 machine on the company side, and it's running directly on your computer without taking care of the hardware, accepting, looking into the graphic engine, what is the current resolution of the screen and so on. Also, what you can do is you can start, for example, Team Developer, but at this point, it doesn't make sense because if you're a developer, you need additional tools, but if you want, I can start it, should launch. So we are now connecting to a special server. I'm not really sure which server is started. And maybe you will see like, in a few seconds a splash screen and Team Developer application will start. Come on, start. Come on. here we go. So Team Developer is now started. It reused a session. I closed the session, so it's a concurrent user license. That means I was connected as another user, and now I can, for example, load my source code. I can do all the testings. I can start compiling on this environment, and you can see the performance is very, very good. Stop it. And of course, I can invite someone to look into my source code. Like I get always a compiler error. I can send an invitation to Martin via email and can tell him, please have a look. He can click on the link and he can easily look into the source code and can tell me, hey, there must be a point, not a comma, and then everything is fine. So collaboration is very important, and also software as a service is very important. So now I'm open for some questions from your side.
Okay, thank you, Helmut. There is one question for you. Can I test my ERP system with ETX?
Yes, sure. Can do that. What we do, so the last 4 months, for example, I did more than 50 different presentations, like with different environments, not only Team Developer. Sometimes they have a mix between SAP system, ERP systems, and so on. What we do is we offer them sometimes, it depends of the environment, we offer them on our Azure cloud an ETX server. That means the small Linux box. And also we offer them maybe a server. We install the ETX environment, and then we send them the link. They can install their own environment, and they can test it by their own. Maybe the test is for 2-3 weeks, and then we close the session. If you want to do a proof of concept, that means at this point you have to set up a Linux box. Maybe you have one on your computer, or you create a virtual machine with Linux. You can install the ETX server on this virtual machine, and then you can test it in your environment at home or in your company.
Okay, a bit unrelated to that session, but the next question, I guess, for you, Helmut, as well. Will you provide TD as a cloud license model?
Well,
maybe question for Martin.
Well, first of all, you have to install, of course, you need the license of Team Developer. That's why I've shown previously Team Developer or Windows 10, my environment, at least in ETX box. So at this point, yes, it is. You need at least a license. But if you run an application, you have only to install the deployment on server side. That means at this point, the deployment is for free. For Team Developer, for the development environment, at least you need a development environment, a development license for each developer, of course.
Yeah, let me add to that. Currently, we have no plans to make Team Developer itself a subscription-based license.